Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of today's guests on this Thursday, including Ray, standing by, brought to you by the Vancouver Giants this weekend. The first home back-to-back for the Giants at the LEC. Tomorrow they take on Saskatoon, the Blades, and Saturday they face off against Moose Jaw. Puck drop from both games at 7. Also a reminder to get your tickets now for the Teddy Bear Toss game December 14th against Victoria. Head to VancouverGiants.com for full details and to grab your tickets for every game. Just before we get to Ray, we're getting a lot of complaints about a lot of things in the inbox, Delaney's Okatar and Langley inbox, about us not wearing costumes today, Halloween costumes. And I don't know. You don't have a Hawaiian shirt on for Ray, but let me just say this. You young broadcasters out there, never wear a costume, because I guarantee this will happen. I had a buddy up north, wore a Halloween costume, did a television broadcast as Spider-Man, and what happens?
What?
There's a bad news story that you have to deliver.
Right.
Something like a death or something tragic, and you got a Spider-Man costume on.
Good point. Very good point.
Doesn't go over well with the boss.
Well, we're not 10 years old, Donnie. Come on. We're not going to elementary school all pumped up, jacked up, getting ready for grade 6. We're not there anymore. Come on.
Let's get to Ray. Let's see if he has a costume on. Ray Ferraro joins us, NHL on ESPN, Canucks analyst. Ray, how you doing? No costume.
I'm good. I hated dressing up when I was a kid. I hated it when we'd have our Halloween parties. Maybe because I just had lousy costumes, but I hated always. And by the way, as you did mention, Dolly, on the 24th of October, you told me there's one more day, one more week in the month. I'll be wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
And that's a lousy Hawaiian shirt you got on.
Hold it a second. You got to take blame. You told Henderson yesterday you weren't doing video and just on the phone. Henderson told me, I backed off.
So so the fact that I hustled home from my appointment just so I could be on video to see the Hawaiian shirt, you took the shortcut.
Blame Henderson. That's what we do. Blame Henderson.
Why not? Of course we will. Of course we will.
Next week, I promise.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, twice in November. Okay.
Hey, is there any chance, Ray, we're avoiding talking about last night's game?
Well, what would you like to talk about? That was sure not very fun, was it?
What differences do you see in this team so far versus the success they had last year?
Well, they're certainly not as tight. I mean, they don't appear to be as much on the same page as they were last year. Even right at the start of the year when they were scoring all kinds of goals, you could see that they were kind of plugging towards kind of a style of play that you could identify with. Right now, it seems a little scrambly. It never seems locked down. I don't know if it's because they've changed their style a little bit. They've tried to become more of a rush team. I don't know if it's because they got 7 or 8 new skaters. I would assume missing Joshua probably doesn't help. And while Kevin Lankinen's been great, they miss Demko, who erases more than his share usually. So I don't think it's one thing. I think it's several things. Certainly the power play doesn't help, and so you add all those things up, and it's hard to get momentum shift to shift to shift, and that means you don't get it period to period to period. Like look at the Carolina game in particular. Like last night. I don't really have a whole lot of explanation for that other than it was just lousy. Yep. And so, you throw that in the garbage can because you have to. But the Carolina game, they were a little slow. They weren't sharp against a really fast, really good team. And it took them, almost 35 minutes to get into the game, right? And they were lucky that they had a chance to tie because they had been outplayed so much. So, one of the biggest fallacies is when you hear a coach or player say, we want to dominate for 60 minutes. Impossible. Never happens unless you're playing a bantam team. right? Like the other team's allowed to be good. So you want to have a consistency of, so you have 3 or 4 bad minutes, it doesn't turn into 12. And last night, I mean, the game's 1-0. Whether the first period's good or not, or the power play sucked or not, it's 1-0. And then in a heartbeat, it's 3-0. And really the game's gone at that point.
Hey, Ray, Carolina, so fast. Devils, same thing. Is speed an issue with the Canucks?
I wouldn't have thought so. Yeah. But, I mean, Carolina for sure is the fastest team in the league. And when they go, they prioritize that over almost anything else. And that's been that way for 4 or 5 years, certainly since Brind'Amour Moore's been there, right? Like when you play the Hurricanes, their game is only one way, and that's like fast and straight ahead. There's not very much side to side with them. I don't think the Canucks are a slow team. I think at times they play slow. And when you play slow, like you got somebody lugging the puck through the middle of the ice, you don't move it, you don't chip and chase, you don't support one half of the ice on a long stretch pass. Like, it's great to have these long stretch passes, but unless you've got somebody coming in right tight to support, now you've just got one guy stretched way out with the puck on an island. And then when he gets rid of it, then you don't have support, so you don't play fast because the other team's got the puck. And so I do think there's almost like a transaction time where you've changed your game or changed parts of your game, and you have to catch up to the transaction. They haven't. And so they either have to continue to plug away at that, or they're going to have to figure out, how do we marry a little bit of last year with a little bit of this and try and come up with a way that fits this team. Because it's just been okay. It's just been okay. And quite frankly, there's 4 or 5 places around the league that good teams where it's just been just okay. And again, it could be early, it could be transition of players, could be a lot of things, but kind of noteworthy places where it's just been okay.
Ray, that's what I was going to ask you. You just said something interesting. Carryover momentum from last year, 9 new guys. How tough is that? No. You've been in dressing rooms and you're starting training camp with a ton of new guys. These guys don't have the same team as last year. I mean, it's simple as that.
Well, they don't. They just don't. And I would think if we think to the tail end, Ollie, like mainly in particular where Lindholm came back healthy.
Yeah.
They just grinded you down. They never went away. They're big and physical and really committed to that style. And now you bring in a whole bunch of guys, like a lot of teams do, right? A lot of teams have a lot of transition, and it doesn't look like everybody understands exactly how to play the way they need to play. And here's something I will say. When you're trying to learn a new place, a new system, a new coach, new teammates, you think more. So say that thinking takes you off of your game 5%.
Yes.
Man, the league is bloody good. It's not like you're off 50%. You're off 5%. 5% is a stride here and a stride there. That means you don't keep a puck in at the blue line. That means you don't get in on a forecheck. That means you don't get to a scoring chance. And if you got 6 guys that are 5% off, you got a problem. And I that's not to say it's just the new guys, but it doesn't help. It certainly doesn't help.
I don't know about you, but I'm looking at the NHL overall standings and seeing Winnipeg at 9-1. Ray, what do you like about these guys and their start?
Well, very different than what we're talking about in Vancouver. Right. Is they virtually got the same team back.
That's it.
The coach was the associate coach last year. They didn't bring in a new guy. They don't have a new system. They're approaching things a little bit differently. They've got a great goalie, right? And there's been nights where he's allowed to be the best player for 20 or 25 minutes, and he has been. Hellebuck's terrific. Kyle Connor he's not a super. We talked about this on our podcast. In my mind, he's not a superstar, but he's in that next group of players underneath them. Right? He's a fantastic player. And so Scheifele's a good player. Morrissey's a good player. They've got depth. They've got a third line that I guess it's their third line. Appleton and Lowry and Niederreiter, and they play those guys most of the time together and most of the time against the other team's good line. They have a real identity line. If I look at the Canucks, there's a lot of movement trying to find what pieces fit together. So when you look at Winnipeg, you're like, yeah, it all kind of fits. Now, I do think over the course of the year, they're going to miss not having a number 2 center. Like, that's going to happen. It's going to be a problem for them at some point. And maybe later in the year they go and address that. But man, this has been a great start for them. They look like a team that is that's hit on just about everything out of the box here.
Hey, Ray, you're in Tampa Bay for Steven Stamkos's return,
right?
A return game. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was awesome. They did a really good job. I mean, Steven is well respected and beloved in Tampa, and not just the legacy he built on the ice, but he's been there 16 years as what he and his family have built in the community. It was pretty. It would be safe to say a regular in their charitable foundations in the community at the Children's Hospital. He was always a big presence. He's got a flashy game and a flashy way of playing, and he was the face of the franchise for 15 years. And they had I think the night went about perfect. He got 2 assists. They had a wonderful tribute video that was a little more emotional maybe to some of the people around. Kucherov and Cooper, you could see, were actually 2 guys that don't really show that much, were quite moved. Stamkos was pretty buttoned down during the whole thing, but it was a really nice tribute. And the fact is, he got 2 points and Tampa won, so it was about a perfect night for everybody in the building.
Hey, Ray, I don't know if you can do this quickly, but back to the Hurricanes for a second. Some travel mishaps. They had to take a bus from Seattle to Vancouver, and they ended up, I can tell by your smile, you know where I'm going with this. They had to stop in Everett to pick up burgers at a McDonald's while on the bus. Shades of junior hockey. Do you have any roadside memories from your days traveling the bus with Brandon or Portland?
Well, I will say in Brandon, our bus was, I don't even know how to describe it. I think I saw the insurance. I might have the number wrong, but I think the insurance on the bus was like, now this was 1984, but I think the insurance on the bus was about $860. Like, it was a rolling pile of junk, and it was cold. It was all, like you're always bundled up in there. And one night our bus broke down, and we were just outside of Regina, and it was windy and cold. And I don't know if it was colder in the bus or out of the bus. And they ended up with a bunch of vans to take. It was like a debacle of, like, what do you do? You're in the middle of the prairies. You got nowhere to go. But in junior, it's not like you're stopping for a steak post. I don't know what the guys do now. When, we'd have 10 pizzas in the locker room or on the bus, or a bunch of Subway sandwiches or whatever the sponsor was. And that's what you got. And if you ever wonder why all the guys came off the bus with a bunch of zits, it was just because we were teenagers, right? It was like a grease fire inside the bus, man.
And yet, the bus was awful. The weather was awful, but I can tell by the look in your face, good memories for you.
It's so fun, right? Like you're out there just playing, and you're with a bunch of guys. We didn't know any better. It's not like somebody had heard of a charter bus or a chartered flight or something, right? Like, we just got on the bus and threw your bag under, and then when you got to the next place, it was probably frozen solid anyway, and you just blank the ice off and put your gear on.
And Ray, the buses now cost $900,000 for the junior teams.
Yeah, we did not have that bus. I can assure you, I did think of something though, because I was talking to a guy when that story came out about, they've ordered 100 burgers, and the guy was telling me, as someone that had worked at Burger King, the thought of an order of 100 burgers coming in late at night is horrifying.
One guy on shift.
Yeah, big time.
That's unreal. That was a great story, though. That was really good.
Yeah. Ray, thanks for this. We'll talk to you next week. Hawaiian shirt for sure. I'll make sure he's
Take
wearing
it to the bank.
Right.
Yeah.
Take it to the bank.
You better, Dolly.
I will.
Or it'll be 15 minutes of uncomfortability for you.
I don't want that.
Another golf shot, big boy.
I don't want that.
We'll send you on the bus to Brandon. Thanks, Ray.
That's it. One way. Have a good week, guys. Have a good Halloween, everybody. Be
You
safe.
too there,
You
big
too.
guy.
You
You
too.
too.